Hello, I'm Hamid Aldin, and welcome to the Casual Fanatic. This is my new YouTube show. I'll be doing about covering everything about football, my opinions, adding a new perspective. Just feel like there's this little gap still in the football community that could be filled, and hopefully I'll be able to provide some of that. And I'm gonna be starting off just doing my first video on a little light tactical analysis on the City United game. I'll also be providing insights into longer, bigger, more theoretical discussions on football, as well as just honestly just vibes about football and bring on different guests, having a discussion about them, getting their opinions, getting their takes on things. And I kind of just want to see where this thing can progress. Like I don't have a clear direction as to where I want to take it, other than really just exploring it and giving it a try and seeing where and what kind of community I can maybe grow and create. I'd love all kind of constructive feedback, whether it's constructive or not. I just love any review on it, and any help would be great. First of all, I'd like to start off by talking about the City United. So delving into the game, the first 5 to 15 minutes, United played a very high block where they tried to really create a system where City weren't able to play through the midfield, which is generally how City like to play. They like to play vertical, they like to play through the middle, and keeping that ball in a middle third of the pitch rather than the defensive third that you see a lot of possession teams almost stat pad their possession stats by playing in the final third and in transitioning it very slowly through the center backs into the fullback, then through the wingers back inside, and it doesn't really flow centrally. That's what City thrive. That's where City keep the ball, and that's where they keep their foot on your throat, where they don't give you that ability to break out from them because the possession is centralized locally. So what United managed to do was they tried to push them high, tried to trigger presses when Akanji had the ball, when Cancelo had the ball. But what happened was when Akanji had the ball, and credit to him, he was able to pass it around. You could tell about he had the highest completed passes, and honestly looked comfortable on the ball throughout the game. That's not to say he wasn't also exploited in other areas of the game, but that was one of the trigger presses that Ten Hag was looking for, but they weren't able to find it. On the other hand, like Cancelo, the press was working in the terms of that they were forcing him into a decision rather than giving him time with the ball, which is generally what Cancelo ends up happening, and that's where he can really damage you. But what was happening is, at the end of the day, the absolute elite technical ability that he has was able to get him out of these problems, and that's why he had the most successful dribbles. He had 3 successful dribbles out of 5 attempted, and that meant that they had to adjust, and dropping in Eriksen a little bit deeper to try and cover off and be a second man to close off Cancelo. But Cancelo was a problem throughout. He also had the tight most duels won this game. Cancelo really did have a game that United weren't really able to exploit properly, as well as also he almost completely nullified him and Ake in a combined role, managed to nullify the threat of Anthony when he came on in the second half, because Anthony's job was to try and find a way to do a similar job that they wanted Rashford to do. And with Rashford almost a little bit struggling to get him behind on the flanks, especially in the first half, other than those 2 times that he got through, he wasn't able to get a clear run on City's left flank because Walker was playing a little deeper and because Akanji was dropping off to cover that off without the presence of that striker. Because Martial was pretty much useless that game. Did nothing of any note, wasn't able to hold up the ball, wasn't able to link up the play, slowed down the possession every time he had it, as well as having no pressing intensity throughout the game. What the United then did to accommodate for this, the fact that City ended up playing in the defensive third and holding possession there, United said, let's drop this deeper. Let's stand in a 2-line deeper block right now. Have Fred man mark De Bruyne. And wow, what a job Fred did to man mark De Bruyne. De Bruyne in the entire first half, I don't remember him having a single influential action. In the second half, the second Fred was off him, the underlap came, cross, it was done. That's what happens when you give De Bruyne's time and space. And it doesn't need much. Fred did a great job to nullify him almost completely in that first half. That's the biggest threat City have in terms of attacking output, especially right now with the way their new system is working, where what they're trying to create is getting De Bruyne as many positions as possible to be able to find that outlet to Haaland, to be able to find that final ball into Haaland. Because with Haaland basically being almost like an irrelevant man in the build-up, meaning City are building up their attacks with less people behind the ball, with less people being involved, and as well as also De Bruyne playing in a much higher average position this year, and almost most of the game being above and ahead of Haaland. With that happening, you're seeing a situation where City almost seem like they lack control in midfield. They lack a sense of identity, a sense of understanding of, if that first primary method of attack is not working, what do we do then? They don't have pace in behind. They don't have wingers that are right now at least competing in 1v1 duels and taking on their man and getting past it. And that's something that they miss with Raheem Sterling. Sterling was able to offer them a chance, run and behind, able to isolate a winger 1v1 and take them on, even though he's had a track record of doing that poorly against Wan-Bissaka. But Foden was even worse. And Wan-Bissaka individually had an amazing game because he was able to win all his duels. He had the most tackles, if I'm not mistaken. He also had the most tied most duels won with Cancelo, which he won 7 out of his 9. Incredible individual job there, but we've never really doubted that from Wan-Bissaka. The problem Wan-Bissaka has had is his on-the-ball performances as well as his defensive awareness. A lot of the time, there's no scanning, there's no positional awareness. It's a lot of ball watching, similar issues that Harry Maguire has. So Wan-Bissaka, of course, did end up, despite him having, I would say, honestly, a good job overall, doing a good job. He had three dribbles completed. He has his duels. He didn't get beat a dribble pass in the entire game, and he was playing on the Phil Foden, Bernardo Silva, Cancelo side. Not an easy task. But what he was not able to do was pick up his man when the ball was coming in. Varane was covering a lot of the lack of defensive awareness from his fellow defenders, because Varane is just an absolutely elite centre-back at reading the game and understanding when to commit, when not to, when to back up, where to position himself, to almost make it look like he's occupying more space than he even is. And that's the most essential skill to have as a defender, really, because that's all football is really about, creating and eliminating space. Back to Wan-Bissaka. Wan-Bissaka really was found guilty on that cross because there was 2 people behind him on the back post. As being the last defender, the right side, you have to be more aware than that. Just diving deep into the byline, running in a straight line and just having 2 men behind you, not good enough. Then again, difficult situation, great ball from De Bruyne, great timing from Grealish, good goal from City. Both United goals, on the other hand, came through the exact avenues and positions that they wanted to exploit City of, which was breaking them onto transition, scoring through balls coming from the right, going over to the left-hand channel. That was the idea, that's the goal, that's the way to exploit City. And United did do it to a T. First half, 2 big chances created from that exact same position. The left-hand flank, Marcus Rashford being in 1v1 situations in his form, in the way he's playing, that is going to be a recipe for disaster for City. And they were aware of that. And that's why you saw Walker, instead of picking up a lot of those central positions that he likes to pick up, he was instead coming wide a lot of the time to ensure that he's covering that Rashford channel. And that goes to show how big of a threat Rashford is in these big games on the transition, as well as Bruno being an elite transition player as well. His ability to find those passes quick without even really, it feels like, without even knowing where the players are. But he has that understanding and he has that feel for this ball is dangerous. A lot of the time he doesn't execute it, but it's the attempts and it's the repetitive same motions that end up getting you those results that Bruno is trying to achieve. So with United, what we managed to do was you created a system that you can defend comfortably, you don't give away chances, You're able to transition the ball comfortably because Casemiro's the most composed man on the pitch. Get that ball to more creative players in Eriksen, in Anthony, in Bruno, and they're finding the final ball. And that's where Rashford is able to exploit. If you had another element like that, so instead of Anthony coming on and not really providing much output or much value, you had another player creating that same overload on the right-hand flank for City, I think you could have seen a demolition of City here, because City looked really, really confused and looked like they were struggling to break down this United system, as well as trying to figure out how to actually beat them. That being said, if the controversial goal, I'm a United fan, if the controversial goal did not stand, City probably win that game yesterday. That being said, goal stood, whether you agree or not. My opinion is that it shouldn't have stood. Rashford is definitely interfering. It's so easy to say that, hey, Rashford was running, and realistically the defender was not going to catch him anyway. Yeah, but the defensive position, the way he was running, how fast he would have gone, the intensity of where he was attacking, all of those little elements to it that you cannot ignore. And those were, without a shadow of a doubt, affected. As well as the keeper. The keeper didn't come out at the same time, maybe at the same rate. Walker's recovery might not have been the same. A lot of those little facets definitely make a difference to make sure that that goal should not have stood. That being said, the second goal absolutely worked to Ten Hag's plan. That is what he wanted. That is what he wanted to see from Garnacho. He put him on to keep attacking that same flank. And you got those two options now. You had the Rashford and Garnacho both offering that pace and behind, both wanting to take players on and behind. And that's what created that second goal and meant that United were going ahead to go win the game. The excellence that Varane and Shaw showed defensively against Haaland cannot be understated, because Haaland was completely irrelevant in this game due to the fact that United were playing a very deep block, especially after the first 15 minutes. That also meant that Haaland got bored and Haaland wanted to get touches of the ball. He had a good pass completion. I think he completed 13 out of 15 passes. But what happened was he had to keep coming deep, and that's why De Bruyne had that higher average position. So he had to keep coming deep, trying to get touches of the ball, trying to get a feel, and feeling like he could influence and change the game more than he actually could. What did that lead to? That leads to slow touches, spaces being occupied, and Shaw and Varane were alert to this. Varane played much deeper than Shaw. Shaw was then able to push up, win those, and challenge Haaland for those first balls, as well as then, even if Haaland does get the touch off, which he did a few times, that then next touch, they don't have De Bruyne as an option because he's getting man-marked by Fred. And even when he does, now you've congested the entire area, because now you have Haaland, De Bruyne, Rodri, and Walker all in a 5 to 10 meters radius with 4 or 5 United defenders. You're not going to be able to create anything there. You saw it a few times where De Bruyne was then able to turn off of Fred's shoulder and got the underlap that they were able to exploit, which did end up leading to the goal. But that wasn't something you can emulate enough, because it takes a specific and luck element to be able to create those kind of chances. This is something you can reliably emulate over and over to create chances. Overall, I think Varane's ability to read the game, as well as Casemiro's positional awareness throughout the game, made huge differences to make sure that City really had no incision throughout the game, as well as Wan-Bissaka's great individual duels meant Foden had to be chucked off as fast as possible because they needed a different element, and Grealish really was probably City's most dangerous attacking threat, because he was the one that was able to say, you know what, I'm going to take the ball and I'm going to carry it. Whether it was leading to any actual incision actions or any shot creating opportunities didn't really happen. It didn't come true for them, especially after he scored. He almost slowed down, which was weird way that worked. But up until then, he was drawing fouls. He was taking on the defenders and the fullbacks and really creating more spaces than had been created throughout the game. What this means for the two teams now. City are left with a lot to think about now. So City now have to consider, are they challenging for the league? Is this a year where they just say, you know what, this is the year we figure it out. This is the year we set up the team for the next few years again. Or maybe this is the year we challenge for the Champions League. We say, you know what, the stress, the pressure that the Premier League takes, we don't have the same squad depth as they usually have. Let's adjust and go for the Champions League. And that's where you have seen the effect of Haaland. That's where you can see the effect that having that unique superstar level players and connection between De Bruyne and Haaland can prove so effective. Can they do it over a 38 game season where the system isn't always perfect? I don't know. Maybe this year it's more set up for an Arsenal, hopefully a United, to challenge and compete for the league. Don't rule out City yet. They still are favorites, despite what Pep is saying that, oh, we're not going to win the league, it's not for us. Salty Pep, Pep Guardiola style. Don't take this as me not liking Pep. I think he's one of the greatest football minds of all time. Top 3, top 5, him, Cruyff, all of them in there, right? But in terms of what Pep says, I don't think that's true. I still think they are favorites, even though it is evening out now between them and Arsenal at least. This now comes to a pivotal point of the season where that Arsenal City game is going to be huge. It is going to be huge and is going to decide the rest of their season. In terms of United, really leaves a lot of excitement to be had, because you've been able to beat Liverpool, you've been able to beat Arsenal, you've been able to beat City, you've been extremely solid at home, you've kept clean sheets, you've looked much more defensively solid. This game you played with a left back at centre back, and you were able to contain City that way. As well as the fact that you were playing your backup right back, you didn't have your full attack going, and you still have another option coming in from Wout Weghorst, which we'll go over in another video on what he can add to this United team. The problem with United is the depth, the reliance on Marcus Rashford, and the fact that an injury to Varane, an injury to Casemiro especially, really could end up derailing the entire season. I hope that's not the case. I hope United can continue this form. I hope we can continue to build, and the progression that Ten Hag is making with this team cannot be understated. This was my first video. Welcome everyone to CasualFanatic. I hope I end up making more of these videos, and I hope it ends up working out. I look forward to making the next video very soon. Maybe with more microphones, maybe some graphics, some more overlays, another football shirt, and hopefully see you very soon. I'm out.